Hello everybody, I'm John Felt. Welcome to the NCGA FMC Ag Weather Outlook for March 19th, 2016. Well, the big story over the last week was a heavy rain and snow event over Wisconsin. Extended a bit into some surrounding states, but you can see Wisconsin had an estimated 2 inches or more of liquid precipitation. If we go into the eastern Corn Belt, you can see from Illinois right over into Ohio, generally from anywhere from a half inch on the low side up to as much as 2 inches on the high side of precipitation. Also of note over the lower Mississippi River Valley, a lot of growing area along the Mississippi River floodplain. You can see quite a bit of precipitation, and the river is running at fairly high levels, minor flooding in those regions, but that's typical for spring. If we look at the precipitation departure from normal over the last 7 days, you can see that most areas were fairly close to normal, but Wisconsin, that's 2 inches, and in some cases even 3 inches more precipitation. Now, if we look at snow, we can see snow that falls this time of year doesn't usually stay on the ground all that long, except over far northern areas of the U.S., and even then, not all that long. But we look at those green dots, and we can see that's up to a foot of snow over the far northern parts of Wisconsin and northeast parts of Minnesota. I've really watched soil moisture very close, and what I'm looking at here is areas in dark green and blue are areas where we're probably having issues with. We don't want to be getting this late in the season, nearing planting season, with soils too wet. So let's take a look at that. One concern I have here is the upper Midwest, North Dakota, South Dakota, not so much Kansas, but in this region here, and that's sort of an emerging dryness and even some pockets of drought. So that region needs additional precipitation. Now, northwest Iowa, actually large parts of Iowa have been very wet, but we've seen some improvement in this region. This used to be blue, but it's still quite soggy soils, but we see some improvement. The area of Wisconsin and parts of Minnesota, just scattered parts of Minnesota, this recent precipitation has really caused some wet soils. We don't need additional precipitation in that area. Eastern Corn Belt, I don't mind the light green. The light green is saying a little bit more precipitation than normal. That I always look as a type of insurance as we get into the hot summer months. Now, we've had a real reversal of temperature, though. Last week I was talking about the real mild weather. I've been telling you that that was about to change, and we look at this week, we see all this blue and much colder temperatures across most of the Corn Belt at this time. And that's because we have this dip in the jet stream. The jet stream is beginning to dip, and as I will show you here, this is the predominant pattern right through the rest of the month. Now, we're going to have variability in temperature. You'll see that this week. But overall, this is the type of pattern that we're going to have right through the end of the month. Now, the temperatures this week are going to average even a little bit above normal. And the reason, because during the middle part of the week, we're going to have a warm-up. And that warm-up for several days is going to help that average temperature. But look up to the north. As long as we have this pooling cold air up here, I'm always suspicious that that's going to sink south. We have to get rid of that pocket of cold air if we really want to see a warm-up. Now, this week, we're going to have another system move through, chances some heavier precipitation, almost in identical areas that we saw last week. Not necessarily the same impacts, but very similar areas. So when we look at the precipitation totals, we see light precipitation over the upper Midwest. This is where we want more. And then right in this region here, which is actually, we have plenty of soil moisture in this region, this is where we could get a soaking rain. Now, this is out a ways, so this could be a little bit further north and a little bit further south. But right now, it looks like over Illinois, northern Indiana, up into Michigan. Now, there's going to be some cold air behind that, and we do have another chance of some very heavy snow, most likely somewhere over Wisconsin, and it could extend to the southwest as well. Models right now are calling for a foot of snow in spots, but that's a ways out, so let's just keep an eye on it. As you know, with these snow forecasts, they can change fairly significantly. But it does look like some of that moisture will be getting into the colder air. And this time of year, as we get into very close to the spring, the air can hold more moisture, and when that gets into the cold air, that means heavier snow. Now, if we go out, this is actually March 24th through 29th. This is not the 7th to the 22nd, 24th through the 29th. So the latter part of March, we still have this dip here in the jet stream, and that means cooler than normal temperatures. So when we go out the next 10 days, we're going to have that sort of midweek warm up. But other than that, it looks to me like colder than normal temperatures due to that dip in the jet stream right out through the end of the month. As a matter of fact, we look at early April here, what I see is still a tendency for that dipping of the jet stream. Now, not as much, but this still means most likely near to somewhat below normal temperatures. Not an extreme or real unusual cold as we get into the 11 through 15 days, but still not much sign of a real significant warm up. Now, this second week precipitation anomaly is showing continued wet conditions over parts of the eastern corn belt. So looks to me like the next 2 weeks we're going to not get rain where we need it, and we're going to get additional precipitation perhaps where we don't need it anymore. So the precipitation anomalies that I see in week 1 and week 2 are not necessarily what we'd like to see late in winter or early spring. Now, the cooler temperatures are going to affect soil moisture or soil temperatures. They already had. I showed you that last week, how they were going to cool down. You can see they've really cooled down here. Blue is indicating, or the green is indicating the 50-degree mark. So this is your 50-degree soil moisture temperature right here. And if we look at the week going through here, because of those warmer temperatures, it begins to work up north again, making it up towards St. Louis into the central part of Illinois, Indiana. So there is some push of that warming air, which is going to warm soils. I think it's going to be short-lived. I think this is going to pretty much, you're going to see this line alternating a bit up and down here, north and south. But I don't see any big pushes of warming with this type of pattern that we're in. So the alert this week, let's keep an eye on that heavy snow. Wisconsin in particular, perhaps parts of Iowa, heavy rain over the eastern corn belt in some spots. Temperatures are going to be variable. That's going to be the trend, but I think they're going to average colder than normal right through the rest of the month. If you have any questions at all, or if you have any comments, there's my email. You can always write me. I like to hear from you all, and I usually will answer you right away if you have any specific questions. If not, have a great week.